Today we're going to be talking about the Ozito 18 litre 18 volt wet and dry vacuum, and I'm going to talk about my experiences with it for the last 2 years as well. So first up, I'll give some performance statistics, and then I'll move on to talk about its unique features and functions, and then talk about how you can operate it in dry mode, and then also how you can operate it in wet mode. And so now the hard numbers. So this vacuum has a suction power of 8 kPa, or if you prefer to use the M-bar measurement, it's an 80 M-bar. So if you're considering the plug-in version of this vacuum, which is a 20 litre version, it has a suction power of 160 M-bar, which is double the suction power of the battery version. And if you're considering the 12 litre plug-in version of its vacuum cleaner, it has a suction power of 140 M-bar. And with both the plug-in versions of this vacuum cleaner, for less money, you're getting higher suction power in both these cases. However, the big appeal of this 18 volt version though is that you don't need to worry about extension cords and you don't need to worry about power points. And so if you have difficulty accessing power points for whatever you need to use it for, well then yes, the 18 volt version will be the version to go to. But if locating power points is not a problem, well then I strongly suggest that you look at the plug-in versions rather than the battery version. Is 80 M-bar going to be enough for you? So for hairs and small crumbs and dust, it'll easily pick it up. However, for things say like coins or large crumbs, it may struggle a little bit. Or here's another way to answer whether 80 M-bar suction power is going to be enough for you. If the majority of the time you're using this head, it'll easily be enough suction power. However, if the majority of the time you're using this head and you're vacuuming carpets, well then you may find it a little bit on the weaker side as far as suction power. I mean, yes, it still works on carpets, but you may have to move a little bit more slowly than what you're used to as compared to a plug-in vacuum cleaner. And just to further solidify my point, we're all very much aware of the famous Henry vacuum cleaners that pretty much every hotel housekeeper seems to use. Well, these vacuum cleaners, they actually have a suction power of 240 M-bar, which is just incredible when you compare it just to 80 M-bar. But when referencing this Henry vacuum cleaner, I do have to point out as well that it is 5 times the cost, and you can only vacuum things that are dry. It does not have a wet function at all. And so if you're only using it for carpeted rooms and budget's not really an issue, well then that may be the way to go. However, if it's multi-purpose or if the majority of the time you're using it for a car or a workshop, well then yes, this will easily be enough for you, as it was for me. So now let's actually move on to battery life for this vacuum cleaner. And so instead of throwing numbers at you, I'm basically just going to say that I normally use a 4 amp hour battery of this. I've never actually managed to completely deplete this battery in a single session. But with that being said, I still recommend having at least 2 of these, so that way at least if you do go through a battery, you won't have to stop your workflow for an hour while you wait for the battery to recharge. And so that's part 1 now out of the way, and now it's time to move on to explain some of the functionality of this vacuum cleaner. And so with this vacuum cleaner here, it actually has a little bit of a 2-in-1 function. And so it can suck the air in here, and then it captures all the mess, and then for the air that is then filtered, it then blows it out here. So just with any normal typical vacuum cleaner, you can just connect it, just put it in like that and clip in, and then put your vacuum attachments on it and off you go. However, you can also double this up and use it as a very low powered blower instead of a vacuum, where you can put it in, and then you can pre-blow out your car or pre-blow out your shed before you use the vacuum function just to get out any of the really big bits. And so it's a bit of a handy feature and not really many people that own this know about. And so now we'll talk about this head unit. And so to detach it, you just undo the 2 little clips on the side here, and then take them off as so, grab a little handle here, and now you separated the head unit. And just that the inlet is actually on the bucket itself and the outlet is on the vacuum head unit. Alright, so going over the head unit, you have the on and off switch here, so that's pretty obvious. And across here, we just slot the battery in, hear that little satisfying click, and so that's pretty simple and pretty self-explanatory. And in case you're wondering, yes, the same Ozito batteries that work for your drill or your lawnmower or your chainsaw also work in the vacuum as well. And whilst I've got this head unit out, I'll describe this little thing here. There's a little piece inside of the head unit, and it also is loosed. And so, what's the purpose of this? Well, the purpose of this is that if you're dragging the vacuum cleaner along and you accidentally tip it over, this will actually stop the vacuum from sucking as it is tipped over. And so, if you do find yourself accidentally knocking over your vacuum cleaner and suddenly you've lost suction power, it's a very easy fix. All you have to do is turn it the right way up again, but the suction will be keeping this little piece inside to the top. So then you have to turn the vacuum off and on again, and then this little piece will be in the bottom again, and the suction will be functioning as it was before. So it's a good, handy little convenient safety feature. How to actually use this vacuum in dry vacuum mode. And so the first thing that you want to do is you want to get the dry vacuum filter bag and you want to put it over this. And the reason being for this is that you do not want to be getting the particulates that you're vacuuming to actually get into the head unit itself and then clog up all the moving parts that basically give this Ozito vacuum cleaner its suction power and magic. And so then once you've got that on, you're halfway ready to go. And the other thing that you need to do in order to be able to get this vacuum cleaner running as normal is to put one of these disposable paper bags that is specifically designed for the vacuum. The question can be asked, why do we need this paper bag here when we have this blue filter on the vacuum head unit itself? Why can't we just capture all the dust and dirt in the bucket itself and then just tip it out later on? And that is a very good and legitimate question. And so the reason being for this is that this will only stop particles of a certain size. However, there are particles that we could be vacuuming that are so small and so microscopic that it actually gets missed by this filter and then gets blown out of the back of the vacuum cleaner. This is particularly an issue for, say, when we're vacuuming things like sawdust, which actually has dangerous chemicals in it that can cause silicosis. Whereas that paper bag will actually capture the contaminants that can cause health issues in the long run as well. And it's not only particles that could cause silicosis that you have to be mindful of, it could even just be, say, tiny particles of cat hair or things like that, which could actually trigger allergies for when you walk into a room. I mean, have you ever walked into a room that was recently vacuumed and you just felt the urge to sneeze? It's probably because the effect of the paper bag in the vacuum was not quite effective enough to get all those micro particles. And so now with that, we'll vacuum this dry vacuum cleaner in action so you can see how effective it is. Alright, so that is the dry vacuum cleaner mode. What if you want to use the wet vacuum function? Say you want to clean out a gutter or even clean out your car seats after you've applied a ton of shampoo to it. Well, it's a very simple process. You just take this dry cover off. And also, it doesn't hurt to actually wash this or clean this out every now and then. Just be mindful though that this is completely bone dry before you actually put it back onto the vacuum head. And so, say you want to use the wet vacuum function. Well, with the wet vacuum function, you don't have to worry about the tiny dust particulars that you want the paper bag to catch. And so with that, you do not need the paper bag when you have the wet vacuum function. You can basically just let all of the mess and junk that it captures land in the bucket and then tip out the bucket later on. But what about stopping water getting in from the head unit itself? Well, with that, we have a different vacuum filter. It looks like this, and it's a pretty simple process where you just put it on like so. And it's not the strongest material in the world, so don't ever get too rough with it. Even it out as you're putting it on rather than using brute force. And then this will stop any liquids from actually getting to the head unit itself. And so both processes here are pretty simple, and for the 2 years that I've been using it, I've mainly been using it for vacuuming the shed here, and also for primarily for vacuuming my car, because it is just so handy not having to worry about an extension cord when you're going around between car doors and then going to the back of the car and then getting under a seat, and then you think you finished and then you spot a whole little spot that you missed, so then you have to go back quickly and get that last little spot. And so as far as being a as far as being a tool for keeping my car clean, I can't recommend this product strongly enough. However, if you're using it to try and keep your carpeted house clean, I'd say it's probably not the right tool and you should probably consider the plug-in version. And otherwise, If you like reviews on tools that the normal person cannot afford and that are not designed for professional tradespersons, well then please give me a subscribe, because in the long run I'm going to be reviewing all of these tools that you see behind me. And so with that,